again, it's right in the scissors. Take that out by hand. So in part one, I showed you how I made a wire trace for circle hooks. Today I'm going to show you how I make a hair rig for either popping up or bottom fishing a bait, and how I bait that hair rig up. So tools wise, you'll need a tape measure, or the baits that you're going to make a pop-up rig or a bottom hair rig for, side cutters, crimping pliers, and to bait up a 250mm mattress needle. The mattress needle has been modified in as much as that where the eye is, I've made a small cut using a Dremel. You can use a hacksaw or anything, but I used a Dremel. Component wise, I'm using Pike wire. It's a cheap one and it doesn't need to have any strength really, because it's not taking the weight of the fish. Your main trace will be. Axia slim crimps and the Fox Rage pop-up balls in 3 different sizes. So I start by cutting the wire trace slightly longer than the bait. And then using any baiting needle, you can push a hole through your foam ball, and then the wire should go through fairly easily. Slide a crimp up the trace and push the other end through the crimp. And then slide the crimp up onto the ball and centralise the crimp so that the crimp is in the middle of each side of where the hole is in the foam ball. Then you can crimp that down. And then cut off the tag end. You don't need to shrink wrap the tag ends or the crimps on these, because it's all encased inside the fish, so you don't have any worries about the braid or your line getting caught between the tag end. Then we slide on a crimp the other end and make a small loop, and this loop wants to be quite tight because this is the loop that will be going onto the hook. So then crimp that down, and again remove the tag end. So you simply have the foam ball crimped at one end, the small loop which will go on your hook the other end, and then that should fit to that fish, and your circle hook will be at the end. So to put the bait onto the hair rig, I get the baiting needle and put the small loop onto the eye, like so. Then, taking hold of the bait, this is a partially defrosted one, I push the baiting needle all the way up through until it comes out the wrist of the towel, and continue to pull the baiting needle all the way through until the small loop comes out the wrist of the towel. So now we have the pop-up ball at the head end and the small loop just coming out the wrist of the towel. So then, to put the hair rig and the bait onto the hook, I either take a small length of shrink tube and pass the circle hook through both the shrink tube and the loop. That just stops the loop coming off of the circle hook. Even if it's debarbed, it will still stop it coming off. Or alternatively, I put the circle hook through the small loop and then use a small rubber bead. As long as it's tight fitting enough, that will still stop the bait coming off of the circle hook. If I wanted to fish this bait on the bottom, I do it very similar, in as much as that I cut a piece of trace slightly longer, place a crimp on, and this time I make quite a large loop. And crimp that down. Again, cutting off any tag. Then the other end, put a crimp on. And this is for the hook end, so make the loop as small as possible. And crimp that. Removing any tag end. So then I would take the baiting needle as before. But this time I would start at a third or a quarter of the way up from the wrist of the towel. Push it through the bait and pull it through. And as I pull it through, I put the towel of the fish through the loop and continue to pull until my loop comes out at the top. Again, you would put the circle hook through and then a rubber bead or piece of shrink tube, as stated before, and then that hair rigs the fish like so. That one could have been slightly shorter, but I make up a series of these so that I can use any of them. You can also use this around the other way. So if you wanted to go in from the head end, thread it up the fish until it comes out the wrist of the towel, and as you pull it through, you simply loop it over the top or the bottom jaw of the fish. Again, that comes out there, and that will hold the fish nice and tight on your circle hook. So those are the two methods that I use for hair rigging bait on circle hooks. In the next episode, we'll be on the bank, where I'll show you essential pike angling equipment and fish handling and care. Thanks for watching.